Hey everyone, your body is constantly speaking to you. The question is, are you getting the memos? Are you interpreting them from loving perspective? And are you taking steps to tend to parts of yourself? My name is Arlene Diamco, and I am the MultiDimensional MD. I'm an integrative physician, a pediatrician, and a cranial osteopath. And my mission is to help bring the intuitive aspects of health back to medicine in practical and tangible ways so that you can access deeper healing and experience more peace, love, and joy in your everyday lives. Before we continue, I just want to thank all of you for over 1,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I typically live stream these episodes. And I've also just started sharing them on other podcasting platforms like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And I appreciate each and every one of you for your presence, for your your interest in accessing your inner light, for getting to know yourselves better, so that together we can create this ripple effect around the world to share our lights and connect with each other. And you also encourage me to share more because there are many topics that are perhaps deeper or more esoteric or um, haven't been brought to light in a mainstream way. And you being here actually also gives me courage to show up for you, to show up for myself, but also to show up for you. So let's consider together how to get your body's memos, how to interpret this language of your body. So, sure, there are the big picture ones, the regular ones, such as when you feel tired, it's time to rest. When you're hungry, you need some nourishment. If you're feeling stiff and just kind of the zoomies, you need to move. And if you've already been listening to those, then you're way ahead of the game. But what about other messages? What about messages of discomfort? It can be hard when your body is in pain or other discomfort to 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 listen. So how do you approach these intense discomforts without overwhelm? Um, yes, you might need some help. It's okay if you feel like you need help. Definitely get help. I'm here for you if you'd like to meet with me one on one. And in this episode, I'll also be guiding you through, talking you through how to listen to your body and why. I'll go over a process that I use for myself and my patients. I've also written about various processes in my book, I Am Intuitive. I'll talk about understanding tendencies, so constitutional tendencies, perhaps towards sadness or anger, or vice versa, and what these could possibly mean. I'll go through some brief personal and professional stories and what I see when you do listen to the memo, when you do get the message of your body, and then also what happens if you don't get the memo. And we can always start by having a conversation with ourselves. So let's go through first a process of how to listen to your body, how to understand it and interpret messages from a more loving perspective. So my process, if I were to describe it in a nutshell, it would be to ground, to center, to ask. So we'll start with the grounding. One way to ground is to bring your awareness to the lower half of your body. So if you're sitting or standing, you can stomp your feet on the ground to wake up the soles of your feet and notice how that the force of gravity connects you to the ground or the floor beneath you, and that gravitational energy is the earth hugging you with her energy, with her love and her nourishment. So imagine the earth's love for you as you're always connected to the earth throughout this lifetime, and you can feel that anytime you're aware of gravity. So let that gravity help you bring awareness to that connection between you and the earth, to feel the lower half of your body the same as the upper, because when we're ungrounded, it's much easier to feel the upper half of ourselves versus the lower half. So we tend to feel more heady. So let your awareness bring that electricity downwards, that electromagnetic energy. And um, and once you feel that connection, that gravity and the groundedness connection to the earth, then imagine this bright light. So now we're going to get to centering. So imagine this bright light that is a warm and comforting, and it's in your heart center, this energetic heart center in the center of your chest, as if it's this bright star on a clear night where you can see all the stars sparkling in the sky. So this star is as bright as the North Stars, and this is your North Star. This is your true essence, your true self. Imagine that star growing brighter and brighter from your heart center, and allow that light to emanate all around you in this kind of oval shape field all around you. And as you feel that light, allow yourself to immerse in that light. So this is the light of yourself, and so now we are grounded and we're centered in our heart center and allowing ourselves to be immersed in our own light. And from this light, it's easier to have a more loving and gentle perspective. It helps give us the support and strength that we need to be able to look at uncomfortable things, to look at our own discomforts without feeling overwhelmed by it. And again, if any point in this process, you do feel overwhelmed, take a break. And you might be helpful to do this with someone that is trained in helping navigate through difficulties. So someone that's trained in stress and trauma release. But if you feel okay, then let's continue. So from that perspective, you're going to breathe into any discomfort that you have in the body. So just take a moment to notice if there's any tension in any areas of your body, if there are any pains or areas of stiffness. It could just be in your breath. You feel like your breath is at ease, or are there any tight spots, or just even little tugs or tension in any area? It could be in your shoulders, in your neck, in your head. It could be in the way that you stand. So feeling like you're not able to have a nice neutral posture where you're fully upright and you feel like curling in some. And then pick any area of your body that's calling to you. And this is where we get to the ask. Ask if there are any messages for you from your body. So this is actually you to you. It's a start of conversation with yourself. And then have this endless trust of patience. So this is the light and love of your breath can help to enhance that trust and patience as you communicate with your body. If you have any area, you bring your awareness there, and then you add your breath to it, and it enhances this connection and awareness, that mind-body connection, so that you can have more clear channels of communication. And then breathe into each part of your body. So any part that's calling. So breathe into any message that comes up. And if you feel any thoughts or emotions arise, just breathe into each one, acknowledging each one as they come up and thanking them for surfacing. And then just imagine yourself hugging every thought and emotion that surfaces, even if they don't make sense. And again, there are uncomfortable things that will be brought up, and that's okay. This is you communicating and tending to those uncomfortable parts. And as you breathe into them and acknowledge them and hug them and thanking them for their presence, even if you don't necessarily like them being there or feeling them, that's okay. It's not about liking them. It's about acknowledging them and allowing them to be free. So let them to be free, and that warm, comforting light that you've allowed yourself to be immersed in, that light from your heart center. And in doing this, you give these thoughts and emotions that come up endless freedom, and endless freedom for you to love those parts of you no matter what state you're in, no matter what they are bringing up. There's a freedom to be happy, freedom to be sad, a freedom to be frustrated, a freedom to be scared, because this is the full spectrum of living. Your state does not change your essence. And so there's a stability in that no matter what, Your light is unchanged. It's your access to your light that might change, but your light itself, the truth of who you are, your essence, that you are a divine being of love and light, that never changes. So you can give yourself the freedom. You can give every thought or emotion that arises from any area of your body the freedom to exist because it doesn't change who you are. It's you comforting yourself and being able to tend to the parts that hurt. And this is why we have the courage to look at those discomforts and why it's so worthwhile. I want to take a moment to talk about sadness versus anger, especially from a constitutional tendency, because what I've noticed in people is that for some people, there's a tendency to feel sad over anger. So the sadness tends to cover the anger. And then in other people, or situationally, it can be easier to feel angry than sad. And what I've noticed is that people that have a tendency to be people pleasers, and a lot of people that are very sensitive actually tend to have this because they feel so much in the world and they feel other people's emotions. And so they tend to want to appease other people to smooth out the emotions they feel and other people feel so that they can feel they can move through the world with more comfort. But it's a not actually a true comfort because they're not paying attention to their own authentic experience. They're ignoring parts of themselves to people please and appease. Um, and again, that could vary per situation. And so what I've seen is that for the people that tend to be people pleasers, it's much easier to feel sad than anger. And what they actually need to tend through to once they're able to look at their sadness and give their sadness a freedom to exist, to breathe and be, the sadness actually starts to process. And what's left underneath is this anger that's been hidden, that's been covered up because they don't want to deal with it. And they don't want to express anger outwardly into the world. And that's not necessarily a bad thing. But the thing is that every part of you, every aspect of you is useful, has a purpose, and every aspect of you deserves your love and attention. So if there is this buried part that is angry, then if we use this process, the grounding, the centering process, and the freedom and the asking and allowing to exist, then we can start to understand the purpose of the angry part. And what I've noticed in people is that this angry part is actually really good at standing up for the self, at saying no when needed. So, for creating safe and healthy boundaries. And so, in those cases, if we're able to process the angry part that and understand it and integrate it, then we have access to this inner strength that can help us to set safe boundaries, that can help us say no when we need to, and to do so from a loving perspective. So it doesn't even have to be an expression of the anger. It's just understanding this feeling of the anger and what that means. So that's what I'm talking about in this episode of what it means to get the memo. You get the memo that there's part of you that feels angry and that needs tending to, that means to access that part of you, to understand that part of you and why that part of you is angry so that you can stand up, use the strength of that to stand up. And it doesn't have to be angry when you do it, but allowing yourself to feel that anger can allow yourself to reclaim some energy that has been buried, and then you can address situations in a more balanced way where you don't feel like you're losing it or out of control, that you are actually much more in the flow of your being. And that's all about like being seen and heard and letting these aspects of yourself being seen and heard. And so that angry part basically transforms into a balanced confidence. Isn't that amazing? It's so beautiful that if you allow yourself to integrate and process that angry part, that perhaps it could become more of a balanced confidence. Okay, so that's the hidden anger that's covered by sadness. So let's flip it around. And for those constitutions that tend to be more fiery, it can be that anger is more on the surface, and then what's buried underneath is actually sadness. And so then we will take a look at how to um, navigate the sadness underneath. So first, it's actually having to have the courage to look at the anger and then open that, like lift it up, process it. That's just the cover. And then underneath the core is more of a sadness. Now, the sadness is a part of our humanity. So it is okay to be sad when sad things happen. If something sad happened and we didn't feel sadness, we would be somewhat cold and robotic, and that's not the way we want to live. The emotion doesn't have to define us. It helps us to understand. It helps us to have compassion for ourselves and one another. It helps us to be empathic. And now you might identify situations where you felt sadness covering anger, again, that people pleasing, or you might have noticed situations where it's like anger covering sadness. And so where I've tended to notice this, of course, we could maybe see people in the world that are more outwardly angry, but in a kind of an everyday life example, I tend to see this in little kids if they have more fire in them, and maybe they accidentally do something and hurt someone's feelings, or just maybe threw the ball wrong and it accidentally hurt someone. And then in these kids that tend to have anger covering sadness, those kids, they actually feel really guilty, but the intensity of the emotion is hard for them to process quickly and to integrate quickly. So what you might see on the surface is anger. So they throw something or they stomp away or they yell, and you think, why are you angry? You're the one that hurt someone. But that's actually the thing, is that the intensity of the sadness and the remorse that they feel is too muchness. And so it's covered by an anger that's it's easily to more easy to show outwardly. So I hope that makes sense to you. And if you have any questions or comments about this, or ways that you've seen this in your life or in loved ones around you, then please let me know. It helps us to share, because it helps people to understand, to hear it from many different perspectives. So basically, when we integrate all aspects of ourselves, we see how each aspect has a purpose. And when integrated and working together, each aspect helps provide resilience and integrity to our experiences. By processing our emotions as we go along, we enter a flow state. We have access to a heart centered cognition that helps us navigate difficulties with more ease. And that is a beautiful way to be. So I'll share some other personal and professional stories of going through the process of grounding, centering, and then asking and listening. So say we've already gone through the grounding and centering part. Now we're getting to the asking, listening, interpreting. I have done this with myself so many times when, like, say I get a little blemish or a pimple or something. And of course, it's annoying and frustrating, and nobody really wants that. So, what I will do to understand the more energetic and metaphorical meanings behind that, to help my own energy flow and take care of it, is I'll ground and center, and then I'll take my hand and I'll place it right on the area. Okay, so right in the area where you have a blemish or pimple. This is just walking you through what I've done to myself. And most typically, if I have something like that, then it will be a hidden anger. And this makes so much sense, even physiologically, for me, at least from an integrated perspective, because hidden anger is often associated with the liver. Liver, when over congested, will back up and go to the skin. And so it makes so much sense that if I get some kind of blemish, that if I listen to the message of my body, it's like, oh my gosh, there is a hidden anger there. And then as I allow myself to soften to the anger, to be curious about it and to listen, because maybe I know right away, oh yeah, something really annoying happened, and I'm so frustrated and just like a little annoyed about it. That frustration, annoyance is a kind of anger. But maybe maybe it's something that was kind of more tucked away and I didn't really un know that it was frustrated about it. So I might listen with some curiosity and soften, and as I soften, it's like the picture starts to get bigger, the message starts to have more detail, and I'll listen and, "Oh, there's this conversation I had with someone, I didn't realize how frustrated I was with it." And so I'll just breathe through, acknowledge, "Thank you. Thank you, body, for telling me that. I didn't know that you were still bothered by this." I mean, it was more in my subconscious. It wasn't at the forefront, or maybe it is, and maybe it's not. But thankful either way, and allow myself to breathe through that, acknowledge, process, integrate with that breath, allow it to integrate into my whole field, sitting in this field of light. And whenever I do that, I find that that blemish will naturally seem to go away much faster than if I didn't do that. I've done this with digestive issues, just listening to my belly, feeling whatever area in the belly that might have some discomfort, whether bloating, tenderness, achiness, whatever it is. And, yeah, I've done that. And, for example, I listened to some bloating it was having with gluten and with bread. And yes, there can be a generational component to it and a genetic component to it and a pesticide component to it if you're not eating organic. But I wanted to listen to this energetic aspect. And so, I thought of a time in my childhood when I just, loved or ate bread, whatever came to mind, whether you had a good time or whether it was something that was bothersome. So, this memory of my grandmother making homemade Filipino bread that we call pandesal, and I remember my sisters and my cousins, we would have a challenge of how many rolls you could eat, which is really funny because I remember I got to 9 and I could never eat like that now. But when you're little and growing and your metabolism is so high, I remember doing that, but I do remember, what a good time it was and the love and, being together with family. And of course, it could be the opposite too of, like, bringing up some difficult times. So whatever it is, it's just allowing yourself to be with it, breathe through it, and in doing that experience, I found that I've been able to digest eating bread better, whether it's gluten or non-gluten. I know there's a lot of more details to that, but I'll leave it more to that simple example of yes, it actually helped my digestion, breathing through it and acknowledging these other times in my life and allowing them to integrate. Osteopathically, what I've noticed in patients, and I have a medical student here with me this week, and we're gonna talk more later, about, his experience, but what we've noticed is that when people get the memo, when patients that we're seeing together get the memo, we are able to witness from an osteopathic perspective how much opens up in the body. And this is why I love to, collaborate with my patients and to talk to them and to bring to their conscious awareness an understanding of their body. Because when they choose to move in that direction on their own, the opening, the expansion in the body is, so much more and much longer lasting than if I just made their bodies move in a certain way, mechanically, so osteopathically. If I didn't incorporate their awareness with it, it would be, we wouldn't get the depth that we do here in the practice. And it's really fun to have someone else, a medical student with me to be able to witness that and appreciate the differences from an osteopathic perspective as well. And we saw this just in this he was just with me one day, so it's really interesting. We saw it with digestive issues, with headaches, with lingering viral symptoms. That was just a typical day. So what happens if you, don't get the memo? Well, then bigger notes are sent. If you don't get the little yellow post-it that said, what to do or what the understanding was, then you'll get a bigger sign and a bigger sign. And sooner or later, you get the metaphorical blimp outside your window with a ginormous billboard sign that is like right in your face. Because if it goes on long enough and it gets really intense, your body just continues to ramp up its signals because you're very stubborn in ignoring it. And that's okay. Most of us have ignored our bodies at some point. I would say everyone has ignored the messages from their body at some point and pushed through, but it's a moment to moment phenomenon. So you at any point can take a moment to listen and take an interest in yourself, even those rough spots, even those shadow spots, because the rough spots are just the diamonds in the rough, the diamonds in the making. Every part of you is brilliant and loved and useful. And in understanding these memos, these messages of the body, and interpreting them, then you actually get to see your own brilliance. And if you do this over time, you will start to help your mind get on board because you will be building your data points. See what happens when you get the memo, interpret the signs, and incorporate them, and then follow them, and then see what happens when you don't tend to them, when you don't want to listen. Just see how your day goes, see what unfolds, see how you feel. And then over time, you'll build your data points. So set up your own mini experiments to do this. And if you're not sure where to start, just start with this openness to have a conversation with yourself, even if it feels like all pretend. Imagine it. It's totally fine. It's okay if it feels like you're making it up because you did make up all your thoughts. And all the thoughts are made up. That's part of the fun. That's part of us being here as human beings, that we get to choose to consciously create our our own story. We get to become part of our own creative process. And that's when you wake up to the messages, you start to get the memos, you start to integrate all of you and have access to your whole being. And then we can flow through life and even through challenges and difficult situations. It doesn't mean it's always comfortable, but it means that you are loving yourself through every state of being and loving every aspect of yourself. I hope that this episode is helpful for you in some way in this podcast. If you feel that someone could use this, then please feel free to like and share and comment. Let me know where you're from, how you're doing. I would love to hear from you. If you'd like to connect with me in other ways, you can on Instagram at All Worlds Health, on Facebook, All Worlds Health and Pediatrics, and on my website, allworldshealth.com. You can sign up for my e-love letters. I send them out about once a week on Wednesdays. And we are teaching more and more. So we are putting together our School of Stillness, where everyone is a healer. So we welcome you to join us as we roll out our various workshops, courses, classes for you to access your inner light and health. Our next one is on neuroendocrine lymphatic points to help you increase the balanced lymphatic flow in your body, which helps to balance fluids. It helps to nourish your body with a healthy assimilation of fats, and helps you to approach inflammation in a balanced way. It helps your body drain inflammation, detoxify, identify toxins in the body, and clear them, whether abnormal cells, toxins, bacteria, viruses, and so forth. So if you would like to join us for that, we still have some spots left. That is this Saturday, February 8th. It's a full day workshop for the seriously curious, ready to have fun, from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You don't have to have any background. This is open to seriously curious people, allied health professionals, anyone with medical interest, or just wanting to know more about your body and how to access this self-treatment with neuroendocrine lymphatic points. Go to the website for more details. It's allworldshealth.com. Lots of love to all of you. I believe in you, and I hope that you believe in you too. I'll see you next time on another episode of the MultiDimensional MD. I'll release them once a week on Wednesdays. Take care.